yelling for me.
Trial attorney from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. We're all part of the same team here. Now, the tape of the show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome to the program. Along with Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. He always gets a little upset when I don't ask him how he's doing before we have our guest on. So let me start, Caleb. How are you doing today?
I am good. Just a courtesy, you're using the different mics, so the board sound was very quiet. Just a heads up.
How do I sound now? Do I sound good?
No, you sound fine, but the board is not coming through. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
we need us a Tim Berry or something. Jimmy Hyams is nice enough to join us each and every Wednesday, and we love visiting with Jimmy. Jimmy, how are you, sir? So that I don't hurt Caleb's feelings. Oh, I think we
Jimmy, we don't have you. Jimmy,
Yep.
You're muted.
I think you may be muted now. So see if we can.
Your voice isn't coming through, Jimmy.
Okay. Let's see if we can work on that. All right, Jimmy, hang tight. First of all, Caleb, go ahead and set up the show while we get Jimmy up and loaded, and tell us what we got going on today, because a busy show.
Okay, yes, a lot to talk about. We got to cover Tennessee basketball's loss to Kentucky. We're going to talk a little bit about Josh Heupel's pay. He technically fell in the rankings with new head coach Bill Belichick, hired at North Carolina, getting more than him. We're going to ask about Tennessee's offensive identity and what they need to do in 2025 if they can hope to take a step forward. We're going to compare the Lady Vols UConn win versus the two Kentucky losses, getting swept at Kentucky, which is worse, or which stands out more, which is better versus worse. And a couple of interesting ones. Georgia NIL law that's very intriguing, and also there might be some immigration fraud when it comes to Australian punters in college football.
No politics, that's a rule. Jimmy, can you hear us now, or can we hear you now?
Yeah, Jimmy, it says you're fully in. I think there's something wrong with your mic on your end.
Okay, let's what might be on our end. I think Jimmy's still talking. Give me a test 1, 2, 3, Jimmy. Oh, can't hear Jimmy. All right, let's work on this. I'll tell you what, Caleb, let's go ahead and get rolling, and we'll I want to double check one last thing. Say something else interesting or intriguing.
Last night obviously was a very tough loss for Tennessee, but I'm going to set up the poll question right now while we try to get this thing set up, which is how big of a deal was losing at Kentucky? Big deal. Can't shoot that bad. No big deal. Bad nights happen. And then I'll go, another one is big deal, can't get swept by UK.
Okay, so I like the 4 of those. Let's see if we can bring Jimmy back in here. I have all my levels up here. I'm not exactly sure what might be going on. I will tell you that I bought a new piece of equipment, and I should have probably expected this. So do we hear Jimmy now? And he can hear.
Still don't.
You
can hear us, but we can't hear you, Jimmy.
And he's the smartest of the trio.
Let's take a 2-minute break and let's try to figure this out. 2-minute break, guys. 2-minute break.
All right, 2-minute break. Hang with us. The show represented by Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. He's your Tennessee trial attorney. Also, we're live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. So hang tight with us, and we'll get right back with you. And hopefully we'll have Jimmy Hyams as well. Hang tight. The show represented by Banks and Jones. Again, we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios.
It's a new year, a new day,
And Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, let's give Jimmy another chance. Actually, it's not on him. It's me another chance. Jimmy, can you can hear us, but can we hear you? Still can't hear Jimmy.
Still can't hear you.
That's a shame. I know he's talking and he's saying incredible stuff, insightful sports stuff, but we can't hear him at all. Jimmy, it's not on you. It's me. I bought a new piece of equipment, and here we go. We thought it worked with Caleb, but it apparently didn't work with anybody else. So give us let's do this. Give us a number on your hand. What seed do you think Tennessee will be in men's basketball in the tournament? 2 seed. There you go. All right. We got a little bit of Jimmy. Jimmy, I will be in touch. I apologize for the I have no idea what's going on. I apologize for that, but we'll definitely be in touch and talk to you soon. I appreciate it. That's my bad. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with today's tough question. As obviously you look at last night and you have to wonder. But Caleb says it's not a big deal. Here we go.
Today's tough question. Boom. You heard that. Now, take it. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Boy, you've got to hear a lot of production elements to this point instead of content. Let's go ahead and do that now. Content would be Tennessee lost to Kentucky 75-64. Now, I know it's part of our poll question, but Caleb, how disconcerting, if at all, should this be? It is a regular season basketball game. That's been said for 30 years. However, it is Kentucky. So how concerned should you be as a Tennessee fan about the way things shaped up last night?
The biggest thing that would concern me would be how they basically took their foot off the gas defensively once they took a lead late. But I don't put out too much stock into the way they lost from the conglomerate of the game. And the reason I say that, and I know that's a hot take, is that Tennessee shot 3 of 18 from 3, Kentucky 12 of 24. Now, I know you say, well, you're going to have bad shooting nights in the NCAA tournament, and you have to overcome it, and Tennessee didn't. But I don't think it'll be that bad, because one of the things I want to point out, and Dave, I'm sure you would agree with me on this, is that Tennessee, Rupp Arena itself is worth 3 missed shots for your team and 3 made shots by Kentucky. I think there's like from three. I think it's worth like 3 of 18 is 6 of 18 on a neutral site. Rupp Arena is going to cost you 3 3-pointers.
Okay. Work with me on that, because that feels like that's not the mindset that Chris Lofton had when he went up there. So
I'm saying if you're having a bad night shooting, the home crowd of Rupp Arena is going to cost you 3 more shots. Let's try one more time to try to get Jimmy in and see if we can get him to give a take on this.
We're going to try Jimmy again. Jimmy, do we have you?
Yes.
Yes, we got him. We got you, Jimmy.
I've never been happier, like in the last at least 4 months.
Oh,
Jimmy. Actually, the last time that I was with Jimmy and we had lunch, that was a fantastic lunch. So that's probably the last time I've been this happy. All right, so Jimmy, let's roll. How big of a concern, if you're a Tennessee fan, should the loss to Kentucky be?
The loss not as big of a concern as the fact that you have these incredibly bad shooting nights or bad shooting games. This is at least maybe the 4th game in which Tennessee has not made a 3-pointer in the first half. I know they didn't against Auburn. I know they didn't against Florida the first time around. They didn't last night. Now, they were wise not to shoot 45 3-pointers, but they couldn't hit. The only person that made a 3 last night was Igor Milicic. The 3 guards that you would expect to make shots, which include Chaz Lanier, Zakai Ziegler, Justin Gainey, Jordan Gainey, 0 for 13. And what I thought was remarkable, Kentucky shot almost identical to what they shot at Thompson-Boling Arena. 12 for 24 on threes, exactly 50% from the field. This time it was 26 of 52. Last time it was 25 of 50. Those numbers are startling. And it was with different people, because Kentucky was without 2 players when they played in Knoxville. Then they were down a couple of players when they played against Tennessee here. But it just concerns me that Tennessee in the start of some games has gone over from 3-point range, whether it was attempting 6 or 7 threes or whether it was attempting 14. That's what bothers me more than just the fact you lost to Kentucky.
Yeah, and Richard made reference, by the way, if you want to message us, we'll be glad to put that on the screen there. But it said 2 bad shooting nights against Kentucky. At least Tennessee didn't jack up 45 threes. Help me with this name, because it goes way back, like 2006-ish. Who was the Kentucky player who scored like 60-something points? But there was
Jody Meeks.
Right, Jody Meeks. So what's the more?
50, I think it's 54 at Thompson-Boling Arena.
Yeah, 54. So what's the more memorable stat long term, that Tennessee jacked up 45 threes, or that Jody Meeks scored 40-something?
Probably Jody Meeks. And I think it was 54, and I think it was against Buzz Peterson.
No, it was against Bruce Pearl, 2009.
It was against Bruce Pearl? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I misremembered that. So I guess since I misremembered that, I got to go the 45 threes. I didn't remember the right year.
Well, I didn't remember how to set up the studio properly. Go ahead, Caleb.
Jimmy, I want to dive in real quick because you were right, but the reason I don't consider this as much of a concern, and I want to know your thoughts. You brought up how they shot so poorly at Florida, at Auburn, at Kentucky, and I raised the red flag after Florida. They still were able to get 64 points last night in a really, really, really bad shooting night from three. They had open looks. What do you think of my take that a place like Rupp Arena is just whatever, like it's good for 3 missed 3-pointers that you wouldn't get on a neutral court in the NCAA tournament, just that home crowd by itself.
Well, somebody said Chris Lofton didn't have any trouble making threes up there.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Might have been me.
There's no Chris Lofton on this team.
No, there's not. That's a concern. And Lanier's still shooting around, 42% from the field, but he can't go 0 for 7. I think that's what he was. He can't do an 0 for 7. What's kind of most of Tennessee's bad shooting games have been on the road. They've also had bad shooting games at home. I mean, they shot poorly the first half against Florida at home, and they ended up winning that game by 20 because they shot very well the second half. So I don't know that the opposing arena, I don't know if Rupp Arena is any harder to play than at Auburn or at other places. And I don't. Here's what blows me away. Kentucky entering the first Tennessee game, do you know what their defensive efficiency rating was by KenPom? No. 81. They gave up over 100 points. They gave 100 points to Florida. They gave up 100 points to Alabama. This is not a great defensive team, and Tennessee shot poorly both times, whether it was at home or on the road. I don't know why. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Was Kentucky doing anything defensively different against Tennessee? I don't know. But for whatever reason, Tennessee, those kind of games, though, and it's not just Kentucky, but those kind of games concern me about Tennessee's ability to make a run in the NCAA tournament.
I would agree with that. And I'm curious still to this point, and maybe people are having this discussion in every other market, but I don't really know what this team's identity is. And that to me is the most disconcerting part of it. Do you?
Here's their identity. Their identity is that they play really hard and they're very good on defense, and they're incredibly inconsistent on offense. That to me is their identity. That's not exactly what you want. I do think this, and I think these numbers bear it out. I think if you're right, and by the way, Tennessee's 3-point defense leads the nation, and yet Kentucky has gone 50% in back-to-back games against them for whatever reason. I think if your defense efficiency is ranked number 1 and your offense is ranked 50, you're not going to advance very far in the tournament. If your defensive efficiency is ranked 15 and your offense is ranked about 20, you will. You have to be good on both ends of the court. I think if your offensive efficiency is ranked in the top 3 or 4 and your defense is in the 60s, you're not going to make it either. I think you have to have that balance. If you look at a team like Connecticut that won back-to-back, or some of those teams that have done really well, their defense and offensive efficiency typically ranks in the top 35. And that's what I think Tennessee's got to get to offensively.
Jimmy, weirdly, and I agree, and the concern, doesn't it, see, the first time they played Kentucky, it just looked like there was no motion. They were not getting good looks. Sakai was forcing 11 threes. Taking another, I guess, me being the one putting the positive spin on this game, and I never really do that, funny enough, but didn't it seem like they actually ran their offense well last night, though? I mean, they got the looks they wanted. They played the inside-out game that I think they need to play. Wasn't it? It really was just a case of the shots not falling, wasn't it? Because they got the looks.
Well, I think there was some of that. I do think Kentucky, they challenged Lanier on some of his threes. They were in his face. Tennessee didn't get as many open looks on threes as they did the first. Of course, they didn't take as many. So I actually thought Kentucky's defense a little bit better. Caleb, here's what bothered me about Tennessee's offense. They got several offensive rebounds, right? Almost every time they got an offensive rebound, they ended up jacking up a shot because it was almost like they didn't realize the shot clock reset at 20 seconds and not 30. I'm like, what are you doing here? But many times I'm like, and then it's down to 4 seconds and you got Meshack out there with the ball. It's like, oh, okay, that's a lost possession. So I don't think they did a good job after getting offensive rebounds of getting set quickly in their offense to run a play that gave you a chance to score a basket.
Jimmy, I don't want to throw something out of left field on you, but it's something that I said a month or two ago on the show, and that is Lanier to me looks like, if you're watching a video, he kind of pushes the ball up, and that speaks to Kentucky stepping up on him on defense, because I know he has a quick release, but I just feel like that shot is problematic, not just for Tennessee, but for his career.
Well, he still leads the team in three-point shooting. He still averages almost 18 points a game. But
do you, I mean, you're an athlete. I mean, do you notice that like I do? I mean, it sticks out to me that he kind of pushes the ball up instead of shoots the ball.
Well, I've seen people, I don't want to go behind my head like you just demonstrated. That's not what you want.
No.
And I know last time you said this, I mentioned Steph Curry, who shot the ball here, and it was a low delivery, but it was very quick. And I actually think Lanier has a decent mid-range game. Now, I'm not that crazy about him taking to the basket because he gets it blocked. And he doesn't have the elevation around the basket that a Dalton Connect did. So I'm not as concerned with that. But I will say this, and this may kind of lead to your point. He does shoot it quickly because he has a bit of a low release. He's got to shoot it quickly. And Barnes wants him shooting it quickly and tell him he's got to get ready to shoot. And so maybe when you get just a little bit off when you're shooting it that quickly, maybe that leads to an 0 for 7. Maybe that's why you have a game like that. So he's been when he's hot, look out. But when he misses the first few shots, man, it's almost like time to put that gun back in the holster.
Well, yeah, I would just say this. I'm going to lead into what Caleb has to say. I just believe that pragmatically, he's going to have an issue because he can't take it to the rack, and people are going to walk up on him, and they're going to play his outside shot a little bit more. And to me, that would trouble me most as a Tennessee fan moving forward. Go ahead, Caleb. I'm sorry.
So Jimmy, I want to know your thoughts on one of the things we had Steve Hamer on yesterday and last week, but he talked about how, and I kind of thought about this too. What do you think of the idea that Tennessee wasn't, through no fault of their own, wasn't as prepared for SEC basketball play because the schedule that they put together in November and December, while they thought it was going to be difficult, turned out to be a heck of a lot easier than they thought it was going to be, and because a lot of the teams turned out to be a lot worse than we all thought they would be.
Well, they were tested by several teams. I would say Illinois was probably the best non-conference win, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Louisville's turned out to be a pretty good one too.
Yeah, in Louisville, that's a good win. They were ranked. I'm not sure if they are now, but they were ranked. That was a good team. I thought they had some good non-conference wins. So okay, you know that the Norfolk Stakes of the world are not going to be a challenge. I get that. But I thought Tennessee had 4 pretty good non-conference wins. Maybe I'm miscounting that. But
well, I think a lot of the teams we thought were good, like Baylor's not that good this year. Syracuse and Virginia are abysmal this year. And then Miami too. Syracuse, Virginia, Miami, like the ACC road that they thought they had that was going to be tough. Those all 3 of those teams are complete garbage this year. That's
fair. That they weren't as good as you thought. And I know what you're saying is you can't blame Tennessee for that schedule because it looked good on paper. But in reality, it was kind of like in football, Tennessee played NC State. A lot of people thought NC State, they projected NC State to win 10 games this year, and they ended up not being very good. So I get that, and maybe there's a little bit more credence to that as I rethink that some of those opponents that they played weren't all that good. But I do think this. I do think that I'm not sure if you had played better opponents, would you have then made some 3-pointers in the first half against Florida or Auburn or Kentucky? I don't know. But I do know that the SEC is a gauntlet. It's very difficult. There are teams in the SEC, and Tennessee is one of them, that were actually ranked higher in the national poll than they were ranked in the SEC standings.
Yeah. What was it, Steve?
Third.
Wasn't it? I guess it was about 10 years ago. Steve Spurrier was quoted as saying, "It's harder to win the SEC title than the national title in football. Just ask Nick Saban." And it's starting to be that way in basketball.
Yeah,
true.
It's tough.
Derek leads us into today's tough question, brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. They have no interior post game from the key. Will that keep Tennessee from being Sweet 16 team or a Final Four team? We'll discuss today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott.
All right, so Jimmy, what you saw last night and what you've seen to this point in the season is Tennessee because Chaz Lanier isn't Dalton Connect. Are they limited to a Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four run? Where would you see them falling if you had to make a prediction? Because we're getting close to March.
I would limit them to the Sweet 16. And now some of that could be matchups. I get that. I am not in the camp that says it's that it's all about matchups, because it could be how you play. I mean, if you want to make that argument, was it all about matchups and Florida beat Tennessee by 30? I mean, then Tennessee turned around and won by 20. So a lot of it has to do with how you play. But Tennessee's inconsistency on offense and the unpredictability of them hitting threes makes me think that this team has a ceiling that they won't go beyond the Sweet 16. I think they get to the Sweet 16 because I think they're going to get a favorable seed, and I think they can beat their first two opponents. They might be playing a 14 or a 15 seed and then advance to play maybe a 7 or a 10 seed. But I don't see him going beyond that. I just don't think there's enough consistency. Here's the interesting thing, too, about the inside scoring. In the last 3 games, Tennessee had outscored its opponents by 54 in the paint. That's pretty darn good, including they flipped the switch on Florida. I think these numbers are right. Florida outscored Tennessee in the paint 40-14 in Gainesville. Tennessee outscored Florida in the paint 30-14 in Knoxville. Now, explain that. But I will say this. Tennessee does not have a consistent inside scorer. I saw this stat. Felix Okpara has 76 made field goals. How many are dunks? 50.
Oh, yeah.
50. And those are based off.
I would have actually guessed 60.
60. Most of those are alley-oops, okay, which teams can take away. And some of them are offensive rebounds. He doesn't create many baskets for himself when you feed him in the post. Neither does Cade Phillips, and neither does Milicic. I think Milicic has the ability to do that a little bit better than what he has shown so far.
All right, Jimmy, we got off to a late start. Can we steal you for like 7-8 more minutes? Does that work for you?
Yeah, we can go. Yeah, we can do that.
Let's do it.
What the H?
Wow, I never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Okay, what the H is, should Bill Belichick make more money than Josh Heupel, or should Josh Heupel make more money than Bill Belichick? I don't know which way to go on what the age on this, but the salaries are out, and I'm just curious what you think. If you were an AD, Jimmy, who would you pay the most money to?
I'd pay the most money to the college coaches who have been successful. We don't know if Belichick's going to be successful at North Carolina. He certainly seemed to age out at New England, right? I mean, his last few years with the Patriots sucked. They weren't any good. And he was the one that was in charge of personnel. He was the one that was in charge of figuring out who had talent. So now he's going to do it on the college level. The fact that he's never done it on the college level makes me, I would pay Heupel more. I'd pay Sarkisian more. I'd pay Kirby Smart more. I'd pay Dabble more. I'd pay all the coaches on the college level that have had success where Belichick is an unknown. Will he do better than what Mac Brown did? I don't know. Maybe. But is he going to get better players than Mac Brown did? I don't know that either. So I I'm fine with the coaches in college that have succeeded making more than Belichick because we don't know what Belichick's going to do.
Yeah. So, Jimmy, what did you think about the fact that Josh Heupel, because Bill Belichick got hired, technically after making the college football playoff, has technically dropped from tied for 10th to tied for 11th among highest paid head coaches this year?
That's a minor irrelevant stat to me. That doesn't bother me at all, and I think Heupel's about where he ought to be. I don't think Belichick's where he should be. Is that because of Belichick?
Yeah, it's because of Belichick, and Heupel's paid to go up.
Well, I've already expressed my opinion on I don't think Belichick should be getting paid that much money. Now, in 3 years, if he's proven it, okay, then he will have earned it. He hasn't. To me, he hasn't earned that kind of money on the collegiate level. He had earned it on the NFL level, but just because you're going from the NFL to college doesn't mean you're going to have great success. And I know that there are not that many, but there's been some college coaches go to the NFL and had great success, like Pete Carroll, like Jimmy Johnson. So there have been some. You can have success going either way, but the fact that Belichick has not proven it doesn't make me think he's going to go to North Carolina and they're going to win 10 games this year.
Look at that Jimmy Johnson reference by my fellow Cowboys fan. I like that a lot. So let me ask you this. With Belichick, do you think it was more about him or Tom Brady? Because I always argued that it was more about Belichick. But in retrospect, I think I might have been wrong. Just in your thoughts, who was primarily responsible for their success?
Tom Brady. There are two reasons I think that. One is, look what he did at Tampa Bay. He went to a franchise. Before he got there, they weren't any good. And he was able to help lure some talent down there. But for him to win a Super Bowl at Tampa Bay, that was his first year, wasn't it? That he did that?
It was the COVID year, too.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, when he went there, I thought that's a bad decision because Tampa Bay's roster wasn't very good. Here's the other part of that, too. And I know there's some exceptions along the way. But for much of Brady's career, he wasn't surrounded by great running backs or great receivers. He had a great tight end for a while in Gronkowski. Edelman was a nice NFL receiver. Randy Moss was fantastic, but he wasn't there that many years. He was winning with Troy Brown and Branch. What did Branch?
Yeah,
Branch.
Edelman, and Caleb's favorite player of all time, Aaron Hernandez.
Sorry. We'll overlook that. So
Aaron Hernandez was led by one of the most moral men ever in Urban Meyer. Okay, sorry.
So here's what I think Belichick did. He said, Brady's so good that I can give him some average receivers and we're going to load up on defense. I think in the year that they gave him Moss and they helped him more on offense, didn't they go 18-0 before they lost in the Super Bowl?
They did.
Yes.
That's one of the greatest teams I've ever seen, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl. So look at what Brady did when he had really good talent around him, a receiver in particular. So I go Tom Brady.
I would have to say so as well, but I was dead against it 10 years ago. Go ahead, Caleb.
Well, I mean, I'm with you guys only because I usually am more the quarterback. I think sometimes we underrate some of the talent that – okay, I'm just going to say this is the Peyton guy here because I always said Peyton was better than Tom, and I still die on that hill, and people say I'm crazy. I maintain Deion Branch and Troy Brown were better than Marvin Harrison. I think Marvin Harrison would have been out of the league. Marvin Harrison would have been out of the league in 4 years if Peyton
there he goes
his career.
Oh, wow. He's got tape.
Yes, Marvin Harrison never had more than 600 yards receiving until Peyton Manning got to Indy, and
they didn't have a quarterback.
600 without a quarterback's pretty good, Caleb.
He had Jim Harbaugh throwing him the ball.
He didn't have a quarterback.
I'm sorry. I'm still maintaining the Peyton over Tom because Peyton never had a top 10 defense in Indy ever, except the 1 year where Bob Sanders was healthy. Never had a defense that Brady had.
Well, Jimmy wrote a book about Peyton. He covered Peyton. Would you take Peyton over Tom Brady if you were a GM?
No.
I know.
There you go, Caleb.
Well, okay. Well, all right. Let's go back to this. Would I have taken Peyton Manning out of college over Brady? Yes.
Oh,
Would
yeah.
I take Brady's career over Manning? Yes. 7 Super Bowl wins to 2.
But are we sure? Let's just ask the question: if Tom Brady's drafted by Indy as with the number 1 pick to a 3-13 team, are we sure Tom Brady becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback still the way he was? Does he outperform what Peyton did, going to a moribund franchise that we now find out was led by one of the most incompetent owners in the NFL? We thought Jim Irsay was a decent owner. That dude was a total disaster of an owner.
That was Bill Polian's team. That was Bill Polian's team, and he was an outstanding executive. And their philosophy on defense was, we got Manning, we're going to load him up with Marvin Harrison, who's much better than you think, Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark. We're going to give him a really good running back. We're going to score points, and then we're going to have Dwight Freeney and these pass rushers and Robert Mathis try to seal the game late with their pass rushing ability. That was their philosophy. Was their defense ever as good as New England's? Not overall. No, it wasn't. But Peyton Manning was surrounded by better talent than Tom Brady on offense.
I'm still breaking with you guys on that. Also, what did Dallas Clark do when he didn't have Peyton Manning throwing in the ball?
Oh, there you
go. He retired.
Yeah, exactly. He retired.
That's right.
It was old.
Yeah, eventually Vanderjack retired as well.
Oh, that's the biggest difference, too, is Brady had Adam Vinatieri for his first 3 Super Bowls, and then, the Colts signed Adam Vinatieri, and they go win a Super Bowl.
What did Gronkowski do without Brady?
Yeah. Or Hernandez, Caleb.
Retired.
All right.
Okay.
Jimmy, let me ask you this, because I don't have great sources in New England. I don't pretend to have great sources there. But I was told that Gerard Mayo got kind of a raw deal in that it was written into his contract that he would be the coach in waiting, but they knew they were going to go Vrabel the entire time. I'm just curious your thoughts on that, or if you've heard anything like that.
I didn't hear that. I do think that they put Mayo in a very difficult position. You got a guy that's never been a head coach, that's never had that kind of experience, and you give him a bad roster. So what did you expect? And you don't give him a quarterback, although I do think Drake May is going to be really good. And I think that you can build around him. So, yeah, I think Mayo was kind of set up to fail, unfortunately, for him.
One of our, I know you have to get out of here. One of our compadres compared Drake to John Elway.
Who did that?
His name's John.
Thanks Manning's better than Brady.
That's right. Jimmy, we appreciate your time and your patience with our new technical issues, but I think it'll come across good. We'll trim it up.
I just rebooted and tried it, and it worked. Who knows?
Oh, so it's your fault.
No, I had to circumvent your screw up.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy. Have a blessed day, sir. We love you more than you know.
All right, guys. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
See you, buddy. All right. So, I got a call from John Adams on a Sunday, and he said, "Have you watched that Drake May guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, he looks really, really good." And he said, "He reminds me of John Elway."
See, didn't they say that about Andrew Luck back in the day too, when Andrew Luck got drafted? Now, Andrew Luck was John Elway, but again, like I'm telling you guys, you can't mask all the deficiencies of that franchise in Indy, and so force Andrew Luck into retirement.
Yeah. Okay, that's what we do. We just absolutely take shots at everybody because
No, I'm just taking shots at Indy. I'm just taking shots at how Jim Irsay runs that franchise.
I will say this, that Jim Irsay was the most intoxicated person I've ever interviewed in my life.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
And it was 10:30 in the morning, too. It's a strange thing. I mean, I've interviewed other people where it's like at a function and some that were Tennessee coaches. And yeah, everybody was drinking, so it was no big deal. But 10:30 in the morning, showing up in a limo hammered. Didn't he have an issue with painkillers or something?
He had an issue with painkillers. Yeah, his father was also a drunk, so His father was it.
Oh yeah, I watched one of the documentaries that I love to watch, and his dad just showed up at an airport and said, "I'm moving the team," and just like everybody can bleep off. All right.
Well, Jim Irsay said when he got pulled over for the 2014 arrest, his exact quote, he said 10 years later, he said, people are prejudiced against me because I'm a rich white billionaire. We're oppressed in this country. Because if there's anybody that really struggles in this country, it's rich white billionaires, guys. I mean,
it's not African Americans or Mexicans or Hispanics.
Or
it's
poor people
definitely white billionaires.
They have it harder than anybody in this country, guys.
So
I mean, they're basically like the Jews in Europe in 1940. They're basically getting the same treatment. It's one
Wow.
of the same.
All right, there we go. So I actually sat next to somebody. I overheard somebody at a restaurant say, somebody asked him, said, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "Well, my dad gave me a lot of money and I took it." That's it. And at least just say that if you're Jim Irsay. All right, stat of the day. What do we got, Caleb? And it's brought to you by our good friends at Hemp House. I'll tell you more about Hemp House here in just a moment after stat of the day.
Stat of the day is Tennessee. It's a stat you're not going to like, guys, but it must be said. With Tennessee's loss to Kentucky last night, for the first time since he's been at Tennessee, Rick Barnes is officially under 500 against Kentucky as Tennessee's head coach, 11-12.
Okay, but let's debate whether or not for a second. I don't want to get into it for a long while, but does that really matter? Because Kentucky has always been better than Tennessee. What was Bruce Pearl's record against?
Oh, he had a losing record against Kentucky too, but there was so Kentucky now has won, I think 5 of the last 6 against Tennessee. And when John Calipari there started to become a running gag that like Rick Barnes had flipped the series and flipped the script. And think about it this way. Think about the 90s, for instance. Yes, Tennessee had a winning record in the series overall against Florida at the time, but Florida fans would be like, yeah, but Steve Spurrier owns Tennessee. Wouldn't it really be a thorn in their side if all of a sudden Tennessee got a winning record against Steve Spurrier as a head coach to Florida fans? Like that was or from Tennessee fans. Think about this. Alabama leads the all-time series against Tennessee in football. But when Fulmer was there, Tennessee fans took pride in Fulmer owning Alabama. How much of a thorn in the side would it have been had Alabama ever got surpassed and gotten the winning record against Tennessee when Fulmer was there?
Great point. Stat of the day brought to you by Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. That's hooked for 10% off. And I'm telling you, it's absolutely the strictest standards, and you know what you're getting. And I see a lot of stuff out there at convenience stores. I'm like, who would buy this? Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Also want to remind you that we're brought to you in part by Joe Newbert Collision Center. For nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work and fantastic customer service. That is JoeNewbertCollision.com, JoeNewbertCollision.com. So, Caleb, let me ask you this as I change gears a little bit. I want to talk some Tennessee football. Can we do that? Oh, you're muted. Why is everybody giving?
I apologize. I muted to cough.
I mean, what's everybody doing to me today? Everybody's just abusing me. Today.
You started it with not having the right mic when you ran your board sound at the beginning of the show.
Okay, that wasn't me. That was my producer.
Which is you.
Which is absolutely me. Stay tuned. Coming up, some Tennessee football. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer, and there is no comparison. Hang tight. We'll tell you more about our friends at Ted Russell right now.
It's a new year, a new day, and Ted Russell Lincoln has an exciting new offer to share. Right now, get a 2024 Lincoln Navigator with 0% APR for 72 months and up to $4,000 in bonus cash. Or drive away in a new 2024 Lincoln Corsair Grand Touring with 0% APR for 60 months and up to $4,500 in bonus cash. It's time to get excited about the ride. Come and see what a luxury car experience truly is at Ted Russell Lincoln Knoxville.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Frank, like the name, but serious or something. The Dave Hooker Show with Calhoun, represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Welcome back to the program. In case you missed any of it earlier, I'll just tell you that Caleb and Jimmy had technical issues and it wasn't my fault.
Whatever.
It's
okay.
True. It's true. Tell me it's not true. Jimmy said he rebooted his computer and everything worked, and then you muted your mic. Okay.
Whatever. You want a crazy stat, Dave? You want a crazy stat?
Well, are we going to go stat of the day?
No, because I have to like address this Tom Brady Peyton Manning thing real quick a little further.
Okay, wait.
Stat of the day. They never lie. Or do they? Stat of the day. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
All right, I just got an email. I was going to make fun of this email, but it says, "Hi, Dave. I'm working on the new Netflix series about the 2024 SEC season that will stream later this year. One of our featured episodes will have an interview with Cooper Mays."
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. So apparently I'm going to be interviewed about Coop, which... Goodness gracious, I can't say enough great things about Coop on a personal and wow, I'm flattered. Just sorry, got taken aback there. All right, so your stat of the day about Peyton is?
Okay.
I just totally threw you off, didn't I?
Through 2022, until a couple years ago, the person who won the coin toss could win the game outright, obviously, sudden death in overtime.
Okay.
Tom Brady was 3-0 on overtime playoff coin tosses, whereas Peyton Manning was 0-3. Do you know how lucky you have to be to, that's a 6-game swing in the playoffs by itself, okay?
Dude, Dude, are you doing this seriously?
Yes. Tom Brady.
You're not lucky to stumble into a supermodel.
Well, let's see. The tuck rule in his first year.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Giselle.
Yeah. Yes. He's not lucky to get Giselle. I agree, but he's lucky on playoff coin tosses. Do you know how lucky you have to be to hit on all 3 of your playoff coin tosses in your career, and then your main rival in the NFL at the time go over 3 in the playoff on coin tosses at the exact same time, when the coin toss during their era almost always determined who won in overtime?
Okay,
like, that's insane amount of luck.
We've been saving this production element, but this is for Caleb, even though he's not technically a coach.
Coaching IQ. Not all coaches are dumb.
All right, I'm in. Me too.
Let's do this.
Are we sure about that?
All right, so is that fit for you, Caleb? Come on.
I think the NFL rigged the coin tosses for Tom Brady.
Tom Brady is the better quarterback.
No, I would take Peyton Manning at any point in his career over Tom Brady, and I wouldn't even think about it. And I'm just going to say it. Jesus turned water into wine. Peyton turned the Colts into winners. You debate which one was a bigger miracle.
Well, no, I think those are very debatable because the Patriots were a laughingstock.
No, I said Peyton turned the Colts into winners.
Well,
Peyton making the Colts a winning franchise, or Jesus turning water into wine. Those are two pretty big miracles.
Tom Brady turned the Patriots into winners.
Tom Brady walked into a situation with 7 Hall of Famers on defense.
Okay,
Willie McGinnis, Asante Samuel, Ty Law, Teddy Bruschi. These guys all carried the Patriots to the Super Bowl a few years before that, where they lost to the Packers.
We have 5 new members of the channel, and we certainly appreciate that. And those that are still a participant in our Patreon page that is soon to die will be eligible for some incredible prizes. Weekly, we'll give away either a T-shirt or a book, your choice. I would recommend the book because I think it's awesome. So you can check that out. But if you just sign up now, I think it's just $5 a month. You will automatically receive a gift certificate. And Steve, yes, I know you were the first member, so you're getting one too, even though you got a book. But if you join now, we will gladly hook you up with a gift certificate to Hound Dogs Champions. Good in orange, hdknoxville.com, and you can do all your shopping online. Hound Dogs of Knoxville, we will absolutely take care of you, no question about it. All right, so let's turn it into how about this? I got a problem with this on a couple of different levels, and I know that on the YouTube you're supposed to feign excitement and distress and being upset, but Georgia, the state of Georgia, is proposing an NIL income tax exemption for athletes. This, to me, is so incredibly distasteful. There will never be a game that's played that I find this troublesome, because here's what you're doing. First of all, you're proposing legislation over something very small that you want to get some pub for, and that's what we're talking about. And second, I lived in Chattanooga, so I was around Georgia people, including high school coaches. And they used to always say, well, NIL ain't get done, ain't gonna get done. And we talked about Kirby Smart. Should you get a discount for playing for Kirby Smart? So now this is what, Caleb? Just a way to circumvent that. And I think it's in part to compete with Tennessee.
Yes, so let's talk about what's actually happening here.
Instead of my rant.
Well, what would you say is an average NIL salary for just a rando player? Like, not rando, say like a 4 or 5 star that goes to a program. What would you say his NIL salary probably is?
Okay. You want me to average like I factor in Nico and then I factor in a walk-on? Because I can do that.
I'm going to pick a random 4 star out of a lineup in Georgia right now, and you have to bet a mortgage payment over how much he makes. What would be your number?
Okay, so not proven, right?
Not proven. Yeah, not proven.
So how much do I have to pay him to come to my school?
I'm saying you have to bet a mortgage payment over how much Georgia paid to get him to their school.
Right. So it's not okay. So because that's not where NIL is going. NIL is going the direction of you play and then you get paid. But just for the sake of argument, David Sanders, offensive lineman out of North Carolina, who considered Georgia. I've been led to believe that he's been guaranteed a minimum of 6 digits, 100,000. And that to me is kind of what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Not proven. Like I paid Cooper more than that to be a solidified starter, but you're just talking about out of school.
So, right. So here's the funny thing about this, or the interesting thing. This is to compete with Tennessee. You're right. But it's actually to give them an advantage over Tennessee. Because all right, let's put the elephant in the room. It's the income tax. Tennessee has no state income tax. Georgia has a state income tax of, I believe, like 5.49%, something like that. It's a random, like, flat tax.
Yeah, when I lived in Chattanooga, there were actually people that would live across the border. Like, if they had kids, they would want to be in Georgia because the schools were better. That's why there's so many private schools in Chattanooga. As opposed if they didn't have kids, they wanted to live in Tennessee because they didn't have any state income tax.
Right. And the finesse was live in Tennessee and do your shopping in Georgia because the sales tax is so much lower in Georgia. So, right. Yeah. Oh, no, I know the exact way this works. Memphis borders Mississippi, and there's a much lower sales tax in Mississippi, but there's no income tax in Tennessee. So, no, I get the exact same thing.
Well, and not to mention Tunica is close to Memphis, and you have a gambling problem.
Oh, yes, exactly. That part's true too. Okay, so the reason I'm trying to bring all this up is this. It actually gives an advantage because here's the interesting thing about Georgia versus Tennessee. I don't think they had much of a disadvantage because, okay, for those who don't know, unless you're, and I'm not trying to get political here, I'm just saying math wise, unless you're like a 1%er, I mean, I think it's like 350,000 or more. If you do the math, of what you're paying less in taxes if you pay like a combination of an income tax and a low sales tax than you are if you're just paying a flat sales tax that's really, really high. Does that make sense, Dave? Like in Tennessee, if you say you make $100,000, if you live in Tennessee and there's no income tax and you pay a 10% sales tax versus living in Georgia where you pay a 5.5% income tax and 4% sales tax, you're probably actually paying more in taxes if you live in Tennessee than in Georgia, even though you're paying no income tax. Does that make sense? Because the sales tax is so high.
Well, I'm not completely following your math. I'm not going to lie, but
put it this way.
I will say this. I think that ultimately the government gets its fair share of money no matter what state you're in.
Right. Put it this way. If it is a straight sales tax with no income tax, wealthier people tend to pay less, whereas middle-class people tend to pay more. If it's an income tax, wealthier people pay more because it's percentage-based, whereas middle-class. And I'm not saying whether or not you believe that's good or not. That's your political beliefs. That's fine. I'm just bringing this up. Once you're in the 100,000 range, like right at 100,000, you were probably already saving money to go to Georgia than to go to Tennessee before this NIL tax exemption law passed. Well, it hasn't passed yet. Was proposed. If this NIL income tax exemption law is proposed, you go to Georgia with no income tax and a 4% sales tax with that NIL money. There's no way Tennessee can compete with that. They can't do a tax exempt law on sales tax for NIL kids. You can't do that. You can only do it on income. So Tennessee literally has no possible way to compete with Georgia in response.
Okay,
to this.
so what kind of percentage are we talking about?
We're talking Georgia. The players would pay 0 income tax.
Okay, but
0%.
What would they pay now?
Right now, they pay 5.49% and then 4% sales tax.
Okay, so Tennessee has to cough up 5% more per player?
No, what I'm saying right now is Georgia already has an advantage unless you're making probably about 400,000 for an NIL. Like for instance, okay, Nico Iamaleava is better off being in Tennessee than Georgia because he makes so much money that the no income tax is a big advantage. Because if he were in Georgia, that 5% would be a lot of money. But if what you're telling me is true with the NIL budget, with the NIL number being 100,000,
I'm guessing.
Okay, let's say it's 100,000. You probably save money paying a combination of 5% income tax and 4% sales tax than you do paying a flat 10% sales tax with no income tax in Tennessee. So Georgia.
Okay, go ahead.
Georgia already had a built-in advantage for the lower rung NIL players, except I don't know if they can do the math. They probably get wide-eyed about no income tax and have no idea about sales tax. So maybe I'm wrong about that. But now Georgia has a significant advantage if this passes, because now they can tell you no income tax, just like Tennessee, and our sales tax is only 4% and theirs is 10%.
Okay, let me ask you this. Because here's what's going to happen. NIL is going to turn into just pay for play. That's eventually, I mean, I'm going to have to struggle to get the Coopers and Jacob Warrens of the world. And that's just the way it's going to be a straight check from the university. So let me ask you this. Do you think the average family thinks about this? Like if a coach shows up and he lays a $250,000 check on your table, as opposed to another coach shows up from another university and lays a $250,000 check on your table, do you think that makes a real difference? And I'm curious. I'm asking. I can tell you my experience. I think it would be less than 10% would actually take this into account. But do you think that would affect people's well, recruiters would bring it up. I just answered my own question.
Yeah, recruiters would bring it up, and I think a lot of players the smart ones are getting their families are reaching out to accountants. Accountants will break it down for them. Accountants will be like, and by the way, here people ask this question because one of the dumb things is when you see NBA players go with free agency and they're like, oh, Florida's got no income tax and California has a higher one. I'm like, they're not thinking about that. It's $100 million for them. They don't care. They're looking where they can go win a championship or play with their teammates or whatever. They're not going to they're not crunching numbers, okay, with these contracts. But this, Dave, with NIL, $250,000 a year, you're probably going to crunch some numbers, aren't you? And it might be worth it to hire an accountant.
Well, okay, at 5%, you're talking about what, $7,500 or
5% of $100, $100,000.
Yeah, 12.5, right?
Well, I mean, if it's $100,000, that's $5,000.
Oh no, I thought you were talking about you mentioned 200. Anyway, that
would be 10,000. If it's 5% of 200,000, is 10,000.
Right. You said 250. But anyway, let's not check each other's math here. I think it could be something. But I don't want this to sound morbid. I hope you and I are both dead before the college football game gets to that, where everybody has accountants and everybody has. I seriously hope that we're not doing this at that point.
I'm okay with it. I want athletes to make the smartest decisions for themselves and have all the resources to do it. We talk about all the time. How often have we seen documentaries on players who go broke playing in the pros? What we haven't talked about enough, Dave, and I'm sure you know some athletes like this, how many made a wrong decision in college and just threw away a career because of really dumb decisions?
Oh, I could make it. You want a top 10 list?
I'm guessing James Banks is number one.
No, he was just a bad character kid.
But he threw away career being lazy.
Right. But I know a lot of kids that went to the wrong school.
Yes.
Yeah.
And threw away a career.
I will tell you one time, and I'm not going to share his name, but we were doing a remote from a liquor store of all places, and they were the biggest Tennessee fans of all time. And I said, I almost said his name. I said, so thanks for stopping by and being on the show today. If you could do anything different in your career, what would you do? And he would say, not go to Tennessee. The whole room it was absolutely horrible. But now again, I just don't know how commonplace this is going to be. Do you think this is
Here's why this is going to be a very intriguing. I think it will be commonplace, and it's going to be tricky because here's why it's like with this Georgia NIL law. Based on the NIL money you're making, the range it is, you're pushing like right up to the line where you'd rather have a sales tax than an income tax. But I don't know if that line's at like 250, 354. There's a line you make in income where if you cross that income threshold, you would pay more in taxes with an income tax than a sales tax. And NIL is literally like straddling that line more than anything else. And
Okay.
so
Great comment by Orange Blood. Camara, no, actually, he made the right business decision because he didn't run more tread off his tires, even though he should have played much more.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. That wasn't him.
And that was one of the, I swear to you, that's the greatest JUCO kid I've ever covered in my life. Just all smiles and played hard, didn't complain about the fact that he wasn't the featured back. He's just an incredible kid. Coming up on the program, we are going to dive into a little bit more Tennessee football, but some more SEC as well. What do we got coming up next, Caleb? Because I'm having trouble with my computer again.
Well, we're going to have a bit of a debate over what will Tennessee football's offensive identity have to be if they want to win it all in 2025. Does it need to be more like last year's ground and pound, or does it need to be like 2022 Hendon Hooker throwing for 85,000 yards?
All right. Love it. Stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And want to remind you that we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. What does that mean? That means fantastic prices. Hang tight with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off Thug Sports.
Like a blast from the past, the Super Dealer is back. Look to the skies, Knoxville. The Super Dealer is fighting for price, service, and the American-made. Ted Russell Ford is your Super Dealer, just in time for Truck Month. Save up to $5,350 on this new Ford F-150 XLT Hybrid, or save up to $7,000 on this new Ford Expedition. Come see the Super Dealer today at either Ted Russell Ford location, Parkside Drive, or Kingston Pike.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
Ginger Power, the Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com, Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer, Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Maybe a topic for another day, but I was just thinking out loud because as Caleb knows, my wallet got stolen, so I got my debit card. I'm excited about that. But what would prevent an NFL player from just saying, you know, I'd like to go back to college. I'd like to drop down to the minors. Legally, what would stop them?
They could sue and say they should have a right to go. You're right. That's kind of intriguing. we'll see where that goes. But that's that's definitely a topic for another day because I got to flesh that one out. That's very intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, just like if you're, I mean, give me a player that just phased out of the league. Could he drop down, especially with these guys that sometimes don't spend money wisely? Would he drop down and say, I'll take $250,000 to run around for 12 games?
Possibly. I got to think of one, but I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but that's intriguing.
I like to make you think. All right, here we go. I don't know. Again, I have a new piece of equipment on my board, so let's hope this works right.
This day in Tennessee sports history.
It's cool, baby. It's cool.
Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports.
This day in Tennessee sports history is brought to you by our good friends at Double D Piping. What do you got, Caleb?
On this day, back in 2000, 25 years ago, Tennessee completed a sweep of the eventual national title runner-up Florida Gators, beating them at home 76-73 in overtime. They beat them earlier in the year 81-79 in 2 overtimes. That win ended up being the defining factor in Tennessee capturing a share of the SEC regular season title, which if you did head-to-head tiebreakers, Tennessee would have been the SEC champions outright from 2000. That year was no questions asked. You can hate Jerry Green and Tony Harris if you want. That was the greatest year in Tennessee basketball history before Bruce Pearl got to Tennessee. That was they went 20.
If you were close to the portrait, you're seeing it from far away. If you were close to it, like I was at the time, you wouldn't say that, but you're right.
I mean, it was though. Like actual on paper, they won the SEC regular season outright. They got their
Jerry Green leaving in the middle of practice with a golf bag to go play golf in the middle of the day.
I know, but they set a school record for wins, 26 wins. They won the SEC regular season title. They reached the Sweet 16, and had they not jacked up a bunch of threes with a 9-point lead and 10 minutes to go, they would have made the Elite Eight against North Carolina.
Well, no, it was North Carolina that beat them.
Right, that's what I mean. They jacked up a bunch of.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you exactly how that game played out. It was Brendan Hayward got in foul trouble, and Julius Peppers came in the game, and they didn't know what to do with Julius Peppers. That was exactly what happened, and it may have been jacking up threes too, but everything was working. And then Hayward got in foul trouble, and he was obviously not going to be benched by Peppers without foul trouble. Again, that is this day in Tennessee sports history, and it's brought to you by Double.
I'm surprised Jerry Green wasn't smart enough to coach to adjust to Julius Peppers being in the game.
But you need to be smart when it comes to fire suppression. Brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beat. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
A guy with a lot of jobs, but this one is the most important.
This is not government work. As such, I treat it with care and attention.
Until someone else calls. The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
Did you like how I played the little record scratch thingy?
Yep.
I got a new toy to play with, so I can do that at any point. If you say something crazy, I can just go, see, and like scratch the record. You probably never even owned a record, have you?
No, I didn't. I never did. But I can safely say Jerry Green's a top 4 coach in Tennessee basketball history.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like,
that list is pretty short.
Okay, so there's Bruce Pearl, Ray Mears, Rick Barnes, Don DeVoe, Jerry Green. I got him at number 5. Maybe Jerry Green's better than Don DeVoe.
Well, hell yeah, he is. I mean, come on.
But I mean,
no offense, but Don DeVoe was bad. I mean, that's why when I was on campus, that's why people lost interest. Like even students, we wouldn't know a game was going on that night.
Well, that was the Wade Houston years, though, wasn't it?
It was a combination of all that.
It was Wade Houston and then Kevin O'Neal when you were there. Yeah. I mean, I'd take Jerry Green over those guys. Just saying.
Okay. Would you take Jerry Green after a number of years? Like, let's just say, for instance, he had to recruit his own talent.
He did. He got Vincent Yarbrough, Ron Slade, Marcus Hayslip. He got all those guys.
Okay.
That was him. John Higgins.
You know how he got Yarbrough, right?
What, just being in the state of Tennessee?
Well, no. He gave his coach a job, Del Baker.
That was smart.
That was his brother. Yeah. He gave his coach and I just remember because he had really big bags under his eyes. And his job was to set up the travel planning.
I do it. That's smart recruiting.
And he made like $150 grand to do that.
Literally.
Like if I called you, Caleb, and I said, I'll pay you $150 grand just to handle my travel and the travel of my 12 good friends, would you do that?
So what we're saying is Jerry Green's basically as good of a coach as John Calipari. That's literally what Calipari's done his whole career.
Very true. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Life made better.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
Okay, in a story that I could have told you is coming any day, it has been reported by On3 that there are allegations of fraud arising in a pipeline between Australian players and college football. Let me tell you, I've covered recruiting long enough. I've talked to guys that are in charge of gals that are in charge of recruiting at their school, and they don't even think about the traditional American punter anymore. They're all about the Australian punter, and the fact that some might be bilingual, ambidextrous. Yes, that would help. But this does not shock me at all. What are the allegations that we're hearing about Australian punters?
So this is an exclusive report from I kid you not, a months-long investigation by a local TV station. Like, I didn't even think investigative reporting was a thing anymore. People just don't spend the money that they should on it anymore. But this local TV station in San Antonio did a 7-month investigation. Yes. And it was Fox 29 out of San Antonio. And the investigation found alleged immigration fraud involving Australian punters and kickers that have permeated college football rosters over the last decade. An exclusive suggested some of the Australian kickers and punters were potentially ineligible to not only not receive a college scholarship, but also a student visa as well. Both violations of NCAA regulations. An anonymous coach said there are players doing it the right way, Australian and international players, and American players that are doing it the right way that have legit transcripts, and said that's the injustice, is that they're getting screwed from these guys not doing it the right way. So this Fox 29 Fox 29 reports that the anonymous coach first learned of this issue when an Australian player he had previously recruited was, quote, re-represented as a 4-year eligible freshman by the Australian company ProKick. And ProKick there were these coaches that he was talking to that were under the impression he had 4 years to play. He had never been to college. Pro Kick's Australia website includes 7 current NFL punters, such as Texas alum Michael Dixon, Ohio State alum Cameron Johnston, Utah alum Mitch Wisnowski. This is all relevant to Tennessee because they have a punter by the name of Jackson Ross, who is Australian and ambidextrous.
Amphibious.
Amphibious. He can breathe in and out of water.
By
the way, Jackson Ross is a product of Pro Kick. So just want to point that out. He is a product of Pro Kick. So this could affect Tennessee if this turns into anything.
Well, I mean, it definitely could. My question with the Australian punter thing is maybe it's not a factor anymore because it. Do you remember we used to have conversations about academic ineligibility or eligibility? We don't have that anymore. So does it affect that at all? I mean, how are these guys vetted? I just have to be real honest. I don't understand how they're vetted. I mean, what? I'm not saying that they're not smart. Don't get me wrong, but how do they? I mean, I don't. It seems like it's two different equations to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't know why it's worth. Like, I get for a kicker. Why are you putting your programs, like risking punishment for your program for a punter? Like, this day and age in college football, given how much the ball moves and like punters are not as important as they once were. Like, I mean, is there a Jim Tressel somewhere in college football right now, Dave? That's like, what did Jim Tressel say one time? The punt is the most important play in football. Anybody that says that is an idiot.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't go that far. But the most important play in football is, you want to answer it?
Your first play on your opening on of the drive?
Well, just first down in general. If you gain 4 yards or more, statistically, you're probably going to score on that.
No, field position matters, Dave. Don't you know? 3 yards in a cloud of dust, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and then you punt. And eventually, if you have a good punter, you're going to win the field position battle because one time you're going to start with the drive past midfield after your 5th time punting and boring the hell out of the fans.
Derek says Jackson Ross should do the ball walk in Crocodile Dundee outfit. Yeah, that's actually, that Tennessee, I don't know if you know this, but they recruited a guy from Austria. And I said, so you coming to Tennessee? They'll throw some shrimp on the bobby.
Okay, you're making a Dumb and Dumber reference.
Okay, I didn't know if you would get it.
Yes, so, I love that movie.
I wanted to make sure.
Good day, mate.
Good day, mate. We appreciate all the comments online. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, as we broadcast live from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios, East Tennessee's largest volume dealer. And now Caleb is going into a bit of a different direction, which I like. What's a bigger?
Wait, you don't want to stick on this for a second?
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, do you think anything's going to come out of this with do you think there's going to get schools get on probation? Like, because we're not just talking academic ineligibility, we're talking immigration fraud. Like, what if a school's forging a visa to get a kid here?
Oh, okay. I didn't follow that. We didn't go over that in our 345.
No, they don't have eligible student visas. Some of them, according to this report.
Well, no, that somebody will absolutely lose their eligibility because of that. I don't know if it's Jackson Ross or who it is, but somebody will.
And I mean, look, and also, I mean, given how this administration wants to crack down on immigration, you could maybe see a coach go to prison for that. Like, I'm just saying, if a coach is out here, I mean, if a coach is out here helping somebody illegally immigrate to the U.S. so they can play punter on their football team, like I'm just saying, that's immigration fraud? And by the way, they took a visa away from somebody else who was trying to get a visa.
Hold on a second.
Jones. banksandjones.com.
Oh, wait. I was going to play.
Tennessee's
I was going to play the dumb coaches thing for you. Yeah, that would be the dumbest coach. And it is funny how coaches will occasionally find themselves awry of the law. It almost happened with Philip Fulmer. And yeah, I don't mind saying this now, and I don't think anything nefarious actually happened, but he met with a assault victim the morning after at a Shoney's and discussed the case. That could have been tampering. I don't think he knew that.
No, I don't think he knew that. He was the thing is, when you have these athletes become coaches at it, like Fulmer was like never worked in anything but football his whole life, right? His entire life did nothing but work in football. So I don't think he saw anything but from beyond the scope of just, I'm not saying he never saw anything beyond the scope of being a jock. You know what I mean? And
that won a national championship, so it's not a bad thing.
Right. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying Jeremy Pruitt, same way, where you can I've never seen this done. By the way, Jeremy Pruitt would be giving out illegal visas. Players with Chick-fil-A bags.
If he thought there was a player in Mexico, he would get him across the border illegally. By the way, what did Derek say?
Trump just added Australia as the 52nd state. What do you mean?
Isn't there? Did we add one already? I thought there were 50.
There's 50. Yeah, but no, we're going to add Canada. Don't you know that?
I haven't heard that, but I don't think their prime minister is too keen on that. All right, so I can't get my thing to play.
All right, so
now let's do it.
What the H?
Wow, I've never worked hard on anything. What a cool life.
For real? The Dave Hooker Show with Caleb Calhoun. Represented by T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Tennessee's trial attorney. From the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studio, East Tennessee's #1 volume and customer service dealer. Ted Russell Ford and TedRussellLincoln.net. Now to the Dave Hooker Show on Off the Hook Sports.
All right, we're going to get out just a little bit early because Caleb's got some kid or something. But Caleb, let's
might want to take that comment down.
What?
Gaza, the 52nd state.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to offend anybody. We don't do politics. As a matter of fact, Caleb can attest to this. We've had Jimmy on the show. We've had John on the show. I've heard their political stances. I've never shared my political stance with anyone.
And I am open to you guys saying whatever you want to politically on the comments. You're free to do that. We just aren't going to take a side on it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So what's the bigger deal? The Vols getting swept by Kentucky or the Lady Vols finally beating UConn? What say you? And I'll go ahead and set that up on the YouTube poll question. But what say you first, Caleb?
I think the Lady Vols beating UConn is actually a bigger deal. I think for women's basketball, there are still stepping stone regular season games that define you, kind of like in football. Whereas I think now basketball, particularly this year in the SEC, it's such a marathon that it doesn't really matter if you get swept by a team or something like that. If you're just doing what you need to do to make sure you have a high seed in the NCAA tournament and you go where you want to go. I think the Lady Vols beating UConn. Look, and you weren't on the show last week, David. I just want to give you a bit of history real quick. The last time that Tennessee beat UConn was 2007. Then Pat Summitt cancels the series and Tennessee goes on to win back-to-back national titles. What happens in the time frame between that win and Tennessee's win over UConn here? Pat Summitt tragically gets dementia and passes away. UConn goes on a historic run where they win 6 national titles over the next 13 years or whatever, over the next 9 years, I believe. They win 6 national titles over the next 9 years after Tennessee's last one, including 4 straight with Maya Moore, Breanna Stewart. They have multiple undefeated seasons. Gino Auriemma clearly supplants himself as the king, queen, the head of women's college basketball. And it's just sickening for Tennessee fans to see. Tennessee revives the series with UConn, but with under Holly Warlick. Kelly Harper takes over it. They still can't beat UConn, even as UConn falls off. This game meant a lot to a lot of Lady Vol fans. And it felt like they were unleashing 16 years of frustration about what things that had been happening to the program when they beat UConn last week.
Okay, here we go. I got my newest sound effect. You're absolutely wrong. I mean, Kentucky just got rid of a Hall of Fame coach and replaced him with a guy that you had to be a Kentucky basketball fan to know. And Tennessee lost to them twice, and they had this incredible incoming talent that was supposed to be magnificent and replace some guy named Dalton Connect. No, I'm sorry. It's not even close.
No, there's no meaningful single game in men's college basketball anymore. Okay, so
Well, then why is there not one in women's? I think you're living 20 years ago.
No, because women's basketball is still not as much of a marathon. It is to a certain degree a sprint, because you get to see how good, one game tip-off in a women's basketball game is still very indicative of who's the better team. Men's college basketball is such a marathon. You almost got to treat men's college basketball, Dave, like the NBA regular season at this point. And I mean, that's where it's headed. Do you think, let's go to the Shaq Kobe years with the Lakers when Shaq was unstoppable. I think there were 2 years.
Google me.
I think there were 2 years where the Lakers got swept by the Spurs during the regular season. Dave, do you think they cared that they got swept by the Spurs during the regular season? Or were they like, oh, I mean, who cares? Shaq's going to absolutely eat David Robinson's lunch in the postseason, and he won't be able to do anything. So,
okay, no. That's fair. But let me ask you this. Do you think Tennessee's confidence is shaken by losing to Kentucky twice, a team that, yes, is going to be in the tournament, but you really should have beaten at least once.
Should have beaten them the first time. I don't think their confidence is shaken. I think they know that Kentucky got red hot both times. Tennessee just happened to be unlucky shooting the ball this time. The first time, I would have been concerned. I'm still not concerned about last night's loss from Tennessee's perspective. The UConn win means something. The UConn win means something significantly to this program in women's basketball, given what it had gone through over the course of the last 17 years. And UConn, I mean, we're talking about, Dave, okay, first of all, I don't know if you know this, Gino Auriemma called, when you were off last week, did you know Gino Auriemma called Tennessee and UConn fans stupid for taking the rivalry seriously? As if he didn't take the rivalry seriously back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about a head coach in Gino Auriemma. Let's remember this now. The year Pat Summitt was dying, thought it would be funny to throw salt in the wound to Candace Parker, who was depressed over that. So he left her off the Olympic team because he was mad that she didn't commit to him at UConn in 2004.
Boy, Caleb really dislikes Gino Auriemma.
He is a terrible human being. I'm sorry. That's sick. That's twisted. And it also is, he's such just an awful person in general. And I'm like, and I even defended his recruiting tactics with ESPN. I actually sided with him over Pat Summitt, but he was an awful person. You keep sharing the one that says, can't believe I'm agreeing with Caleb.
No, I'm working with new equipment, Caleb.
And that too, Adam's right. Kim Caldwell beating Gino in the first try is huge. And here's the big part. Not just beating Gino, out coaching Gino in the last 5 minutes, out coaching the supposed greatest coach in women's basketball history, who doesn't look like the greatest coach in women's basketball history right now.
Oh, listen, he's not even close to the greatest basketball coach in history. And I'll tell you why, because the men's budget in basketball and in that area of the country, it supported women's basketball. So it's like, why not win? Why not win at a high level? They had money thrown at it. Pat Summitt had to build something, and then eventually it was supported. So no, he's not even. I'm not going to pretend. Well, I'll go ahead and say top 5 right now. How about Mulkey, Summitt, Staley,
Auriemma, obviously, yeah, and then.
Well, no, I'm trying to leave out Auriemma.
Tara Vanderveer, the Stanford coach, who's got 3 national titles. Yeah. I'm with you. I would take all 4 of them, and look, after watching over the weekend, we might be talking about Kim Caldwell in this conversation soon. I mean, she coached circles around Gino in the last 5 minutes of that game. And Gino's substitutions, it was just baffling. I've never seen anything like that before and how bad he was at it. So
stuff. All right. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Caleb's got a child issue to go to attend to. By the way, how old is your young one?
He is
how
8 months. He is 8 months old.
No, he was 9 months last month.
No, you're getting your dates. You're getting your
No, you got your dates wrong.
No, I've never said 9 months. You misheard me.
No, you said 9 months because I remember that's the exact time that the pregnancy was.
No, never said it. You dreamed it.
Okay. All right. There we go. Todd says, sorry, Caleb. Didn't mean.
I know. I love your comment, Todd. I love your comment. No. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I'm a fan of your comment. Like I don't care when people disagree with me all the time, and I love it when people who disagree with me mostly do agree with me at some points. So don't feel bad.
That's most gratifying. Like when I told people that Dooley and Butch were idiots early in their careers, everybody said, no, you're an idiot. But I think I proved to be the lesser idiot.
Butch Jones went 9-4 in back-to-back years at Tennessee, and that's something that had never been done in history, according to him.
According to him, how did he?
No, in 2017, right before SEC Media Days, after underwhelming and not winning the East, he said, we did some things here that haven't been done in a really, really, really long time. Back-to-back top 25 seasons. I'm like, define really, really long, Butch.
It's like 10 years. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Derek was saying thanks. Well, you're welcome. I'm not sure what that's for, but this is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Please comment more. We absolutely love that. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports, as we're represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, broadcasting from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. Ted Russell Ford Lincoln, the